And this morning, we have a rare opportunity to get an inside look at a ministry that is dynamic, and it will open our eyes to some questions and some things that are happening out in the marketplace. We're going to reach across the telephone here and down about 200 miles down the road and talk to Chaplain Vernon Landreth. Welcome to the program by telephone this morning, Chaplain.
Thank you, Dr. Barrett. It's my privilege to be here today.
How long have we known each other, Vernon?
Ever since I began my ministry. I remember being in the MIP program and you doing presentations, so that'd probably be in the neighborhood of about 27 years.
27 years ago. You were a young man then, Vernon.
A younger man, yes, sir.
How old are you now?
I just turned 50 years old, and I'll say I'm a young 50. How about that?
I'm happy for that. Vernon, you know, you've been tracking, and you're one of those young men who've stayed in touch with me through the years, and something about my life has been inspirational to you, and it's encouraged you to pursue an education. And so today, your actual technical role for why we have you on the radio is what?
I'm the Director of Community Service Chaplains. I'm also the chairman of the Chaplains Board for our denomination for the state of Virginia. So
you've basically like carved this out, Vernon. I mean, this is not something that really existed before your day.
Our denomination, of course, has a chaplains commission, but 26 years ago, I started as a fire chaplain, as a volunteer fireman for a community called Barron Springs Volunteer Fire Department. And then, of course, our family's been involved in racing for many years. So because I've raced cars and continue to race, this became a natural thing in ministry to become the chaplain of the Speedway where we race there at Motor Mile Speedway. So for many years, I've done community service, chaplaincy, at the NASCAR Weekly Series tracks and things of that nature.
So, Vernon, you're a chaplain. You know, what did you tell me that word was yesterday, this acronym? Tell me those letters again and what they mean. The emergency preparedness, you know.
Critical Incident Stress Management, CISM.
CISM. And now this is not new to us, is it? I mean, this is something that's been around for a long time in the marketplace.
Yes, sir. This is the national standard for first responders and government agencies across our country now for critical incident stress management. When there's an incident of some kind where there's a tragedy, a death, a community crisis, critical incident stress management is the method by which we go in and help people process those traumas and then give them the tools moving forward to be able to be healthy emotionally and spiritually and otherwise as they move forward after a disaster or a horrendous crisis has taken place.
I want to back up a little bit here, Vernon. Actually, you also work another job at the present time.
I do. I've been bivocational most of my ministry, and so I do currently work a secular job as well in the marketplace.
And that job is where?
I work at Volvo Trucks North America here in the New River Valley.
So you actually work to make a living so that you can give your life away as a chaplain?
Yes, sir. I work in order to maintain the opportunities for ministry because, once again, there's hundreds of hours of training involved, and someone has to pay for that training, and, of course, I've been nominated to do that.
So you've actually paid for your own training to advance so you could you could take on this role. Now, how wide a role are you serving at the present time? I mean, you talk about being at NASCAR events and being a chaplain. What in the world does a chaplain do at a NASCAR event?
My role at the Speedway, of course, is to build relationships with the staff, with the racers, with the teams. Over years, chaplaincy is relational, and it takes time, commitments, to be able to build the relationships with people out here in our communities in order to do ministry for them. So part of my role is not only have I been a racer, but these folks have learned now that I have become their pastor. So when I walk into that Speedway, I am the pastor of that Speedway because most of these folks, many of them, do not have a church affiliation or a pastor. So I fill that role for that institution there at the Speedway.
Now, I want to take that apart a little bit because, I mean, unfortunately, I'm going to say it's unfortunate. Many of the races and all happen on Saturday, Sunday. They're prepping on Saturday, getting ready to run on Sunday. So going to Sunday morning church is just not in the cards for many of these NASCAR people, right?
Yes, sir. Like our Speedway, NASCAR home tracks are normally Friday or Saturday night local venues. And then, of course, you have your larger venues like Martinsville and Bristol who race on Sundays. But like with us, these folks are traveling in from different parts of the country because there's national points implications. So these folks often are traveling here on Saturday. They're unable to make it back to a church service because they're driving through the night, either staying Saturday night or driving Sunday morning. So the ministry that they get would be what I can provide for them on a weekly basis at the Speedway.
Do you find that many of the people who are like NASCAR drivers and staff actually have churches? I mean, are they interested in church?
Often, yes. There's a lot of them that have home churches. Often you'll see their church logo or name on their particular car. Not all of them, but many of them do. And so during the summertime or during race event times, their churches know that they're going to be at our Speedway. And I tell them often to make sure they tell their pastor at their home church that when they're at the Speedway, they're under my pastoral care at that time.
Do you actually have any kind of chapel service, or do you have prayer with them? What do you do?
What we do is we have a drivers meeting where it's mandatory for all drivers and crew chiefs, all the officials, all come together, and we have I call it a mandatory drivers meeting prayer. What happens is, at the conclusion of the drivers meeting, they open the opportunity for me to have prayer. And what's happened is through the course of time, people will then they come to me and give me prayer requests if they have needs in their families. The staff of the Speedway, when they hear of things that happen related to the racing family, they'll bring that to me, and that's an opportunity for me to offer up and tell folks about the needs. And then we have prayer for those specific needs. And then, of course, I have prayer for the safety and blessings for the Speedway as well. So that would be an opportunity. And then individually, through the day, it's a 12-hour day at least at the Speedway. I have opportunity to be in pits and their trailers and different things. So when they have specific needs, it's a one-on-one prayer ministry. Some teams have me come prior to the race and gather the entire team together and have prayer with the entire team. Some drivers sitting in the car, they wave me over and take their hand, and they want me to have prayer with them right before the race begins.
All right. Now, is the prayer that you kind of call the quote-unquote mandatory prayer for all drivers? Do most of the drivers stay for that kind of corporate prayer or not?
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir. 100% of all the staff, the officials, the drivers, I've never had anyone leave during that time. So basically, I tell folks it's better than being a pastor sometimes because these folks are guaranteed to be here. So
wow,
it's really easy. So
that's pretty amazing.
Everyone, in fact, we had a couple of occasions where things were so hectic that day during the Speedway that the competition director was going to dismiss the meeting, and probably 40 or 50 people at one time started pointing at me and telling him that we forgot to have the prayer. So these folks, men and women, are expecting that at the end of that drivers meeting. So that has become part of the institutional process now.
Hold on a minute. I want to take this apart just a little bit. You're trying to tell me that at a NASCAR event that all drivers and staff are required to be present in a room. They go through all the protocol of all the administrative issues and what have you, and then that virtually 100% of people stay for a preacher who believes in Jesus Christ to take sometimes handwritten notes and other things and to hold them and to pray corporately for all of these people who are going to go out there and listen to all the ranting and raving, yelling, and cars 200 miles an hour and screaming and crashing. You're going to tell me that these people bow their heads and respect a prayer from a preacher. Is that what you're telling me?
Yes, sir. That's what I'm telling you. In fact, not only do they respect it, they respect it, they anticipate it, and they expect that that's going to be part of the process. In fact, I'll make this statement to you. I've written some articles about this, that NASCAR is the only international sport by which you watch on television or listen to on radio that as a part of the official event, you will hear an invocation and the national anthem performed live at every single event that NASCAR has, period. That's the only sport in the international world that happens every single time.
I want to move along a little bit here. We're talking to Vernon Landreth, Chaplain Vernon Landreth, whom I respect. And you know, one of the things I want to again, appreciate you. You have stayed in touch through the years. You didn't have to. You called me yesterday, and you said, hey, Pastor, I want you to know, Dr. Bear, that your influence has been important. You sent me documents. You encouraged me to get a foundation. And as of yesterday, you got notice from the IRS. What did the IRS tell you?
Well, they notified me that we have received our tax-exempt status for a 501c3 nonprofit organization by which we can raise funding now to be able to do what we do in our area for critical incident stress management, chaplaincy for first responders and law enforcement through this entire region. So they notified me that we can move forward with that operationally, and that was a very exciting day. And so you were one of the phone calls I wanted to make.
And I appreciate that.
Because as I called you, you were able to help me and give me some advice and direction in these things.
Vernon, I want to applaud this character trait in you in which you would reach out and say thanks. And it's something I want to communicate to young people. If you want the best of the future, stay in touch with people who have encouraged you and been strong for you. I want to take you over into another area of discussion here. You not only work with like NASCAR and races and racetracks and ministering to people there in the midst of all the beer and whatever else, but there are people who are praying and who are fearing God and who want to just be decent, God-fearing people. Vernon, you also work with like sheriff's departments and police departments. Tell us something about that side of life with this critical incident stress management system. What do you do with let's just take a local sheriff's department or police department. You work with multiple departments. What do you do? I mean, where does a chaplain come in? Do you wear a uniform? Do you wear a suit and a necktie? What's your role?
I do wear a uniform. Part of what we have to do as a chaplain for a law enforcement agency, I'm chaplain for Pulaski County and Carroll County Sheriff's Office, and I do ride with officers. One of the things about chaplaincy in particular is you have to build relationships, and that takes time, that takes communication, that takes being in the presence of people.
Now, hold on. So, this means you're like out maybe at midnight riding in a police car?
Yes, sir. I'll ride anywhere from an 8 to a 12-hour shift in a police car. Yes, sir.
And you're in what kind of uniform?
I'll be wearing the uniform that they wear. Sometimes that would be a Class A uniform. Sometimes at night that will be what they would call a BDU uniform with polos. Whatever that officer's wearing is what I wear for that particular shift. Whatever's required by the department is what I wear.
So you are considered like an official part of the department, even though you're not paid by Pulaski County.
That is correct, sir. I'm an official part of the department. I have a badge and ID that they give to me, so that when I'm out here in the middle of the night and we have situations we're dealing with, that I'm identifiable, just like that officer. I'm identifiable from the distance.
You're at risk.
I'm supposed to be here.
You're at risk.
I am, sir.
Are you armed?
I am not currently armed at this time.
So as a chaplain, you're in a police car, and hey, they get a call. It's a bank robbery. It's a hit and run. It's a domestic dispute. Does he say, excuse me, chaplain, you need to stay here and pray while I go take care of this, or what? What happens?
No, sir. We respond to every single call. When that officer gets a call, I'm in the car. We respond to that call together. Now, obviously, I can't talk about all the operational details, but however, I'm on scene, every scene with that officer, and because I'm under the same stress as they are, under the same pressures, and sometimes even under the same dangers that they are as well. That's part of a police chaplain job, because for me to understand them, I need to be with them so that I understand now what pressures they go under, so that when they need things, the chaplain, when they talk to me in confidence, I understand what they're talking about.
You're with Pastor Bear on WINA Impact for God. We're talking to Chaplain Vernon Landreth down in Wytheville, Virginia. And Vernon, some of the critical kinds of things that have happened, like you told me you'd recently dealt with like a 2-year-old being killed. What does a chaplain do in a role like that?
In that particular role, when the event's over, we do critical incident stress debriefings. We would gather the first responders. In this case, a 2-year-old was killed at a Halloween event. And so I did a debriefing, put together a team for the rescue workers, the fire department, and the law enforcement that was on scene. Because no matter how experienced a person is in first response, when something happens to a child, it is a deep impact on everyone involved. So our goal is to meet with them, and we have a particular thing that we do with debriefing, because we want them to be able to continue to be healthy and respond to the next event, because the next event is going to happen.
So you don't just simply say, we care and we're so sorry this happened, but there is a professional way of approaching these crises that helps a person to kind of psychologically, spiritually transition.
Yes, sir. A trained chaplain, and we have a trained team members that go, and we sit down, and people who are peers and have experienced similar things. Because the first time you experience a tragedy like that, you have no words to describe that. You can't tell people how you feel about that at the moment. And so we sit down and talk about what they're feeling, what they're thinking, how they're impacted, and to normalize those emotions and those feelings for them so that they realize that they are going to survive this event and be able to move forward in the future. So
you also do things in addition to that, like serve death notices, so forth. Tell us a little bit about that, Vernon.
Yes, sir. I would get a phone call. Someone would die tragically in the area, and I'll get a phone call, and I'll go out as the chaplain to the home of a family member. And part of my job is to deliver a death notification to them. They like to have a chaplain with them, because you're about to give someone the worst news that they'll ever get in their life.
Do you go alone on those experiences, or do somebody go with you?
It just depends on the circumstance. Sometimes I may do that alone. Most of the time I have a law enforcement officer with me, and we'll go, because then I make the notification. They can give them the specifics, because they'll have many questions. And then my job then is to help them moving forward, offer spiritual care at that time, emotional care, refer them on, to other care such as mental health. Whatever is necessary for that situation is what we do to follow up.
Vernon, we're running down on time here, but tell me, across the country, are chaplains pretty common in police departments?
It's more common. Larger departments have a larger pool, of course, to pull from, but not 100%. I serve multiple jurisdictions in our area, because law enforcement chaplains are not as common in this area. So I have several departments that I either work for directly, or I am their on-call person that they will call to come help that department when they have a need.
We got about a minute and a half left here, and I want to take you into just say a word. How important? You're trained in critical, what? Critical? Say it again.
Critical incidents, stress management, and debriefing.
All right. This also includes emergency preparedness. Give me just a word of wisdom to people who are listening about churches and about things that they should pay attention to.
You need to have an emergency response plan for your church. For instance, you could have someone sick. You could have some type of emergency like a fire. You could have a storm. So you need a plan in place on how to deal with security issues, medical issues. And to me, the larger the congregation, the more need. But every congregation needs a plan in place to be able to help their own people, because you're right there when it happens. So you need some training, or you need some experience and a plan in place to be able to help your own folks.
Vernon Landreth, I want to tell you how important this is, because I was preaching a Sunday morning a year or two ago. On a Sunday morning, middle of my sermon, a man died 3 pews in front of me. Right there in church. And so in the middle of my sermon, we had to call the rescue squad and have a body taken out. They were able to bring him back, but yeah, you're talking about real stuff. Vernon Landreth, I want you to know how glad I am that you're with us on WINA 1070 Charlottesville, Virginia, Impact for God. Been a real pleasure talking with you. I want to commend you for the diligence and the aggressiveness with which you have pursued a bold future in being a chaplain to NASCAR and to police departments and to churches. Thank you so much for being with me on WINA 1070 Charlottesville. Folks, may you have a blessed and a wonderful day. As Pastor Bear, if you don't have a church, I'd love to be your pastor. please consider Covenant Church and pray for me that I will be bold for Jesus in these days. God bless you. May you have a wonderful and a blessed day. Pastor Bear over and out here as we charge into this new year full steam ahead. Throw the throttle wide open. Pastor Bear.